Hey, what's going on, loungers? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Misa T, and I'm a 20+ year importer and product developer. So today's going to be our final installment of Shop Talk Sundays, where we talk about all of the levels of e-commerce when it comes to dealing in tangible goods. Because it's my belief that we are all in the same e-commerce space, except it is not this path and that path and everything is on equal footing. It is actually a graduation where the sourcing ability gets more and more complex. And the more upper levels that you get into, the more different kinds of options open up for you as a business owner. So for people who are in the reseller space, yes, it's very simple. It's very easy to get into. However, your abilities here are very, very limited. So a lot of people are very worried about should they take their business any further, right? And it's only because you don't know what you don't know. So you have a lot of legitimate concerns about this space. So my approach is to say, all right, you know what? Let's just go ahead and move all the fancy terminology aside, right? The whole, proof of concept and USPs and, opportunity costs and all that stuff. Let's just move that aside for a second and talk about exactly what private labeling actually is. Basically, it just means selling something of your own creation. That's all it really is. Okay. So now once it's framed that way, it's not as intimidating anymore because see, as a reseller, what were you doing the whole time? You're selling stuff that is created by someone else. All we're saying now is that what if you were the creator? Well, if you were the creator of the product, you would now have product exclusivity and you would have creative control over the item so that you could address the pain points. Your first iteration of something is not going to be very good. Just like right now, as I put out all of these classes, it's just the first iteration. I'm sure in the future, when I release second and third editions of all of these classes, they're going to be far better than the ones that I initially recorded. It's exactly like that. So when you think about, look, everybody's got to start somewhere, but the point is to end up in a better place tomorrow than you did today. So for today's video, the creator I would like to feature is of XXL Scrunchie and Company. So this is the channel over here. You really want to look this one up on YouTube. She has 375,000 subscribers. So basically all of the content that she does is a lot of day in the life of a small business owner who grew her business from a $500 investment to 2.5 million over the course of 5 years. So here's the thing, okay? She has all sorts of different kinds of information here of how to hire employees, how do you post on YouTube Shorts, and why you should do it, everything related to business stuff. So the thing is this, her business is very different than my business. Her business definitely needs a little bit more promotion and external traffic than my business does. What I personally do is a lot more utility than items that need to be featured. That's the biggest difference, okay? So her business is based on sensationalism of what her product is, while my product is based on the utility search. For example, because I do mostly automotive accessories, so when I sell things like steering wheel covers, seat covers, car covers, floor mats, people are already looking for steering wheels, car covers, these floor mats and stuff like that. But once you start talking about hairpins and hair clips and scrunchies, you're going to get flooded into the market because there's way too many things out there. So she needs a little bit more external traffic to promote her brand in order to do this. This would apply to the same people who are trying to do product launches for clothing or jewelry, things that you already know. If you were to search for the item without having to put in the brand name of the item, you already know this would get lost at sea. For example, if you were specifically looking for either Pandora or Swarovski type of jewelry, well, if you were to omit the word Pandora or Swarovski, are you going to find this item anymore? Exactly. It's going to get lost in the catalog. But if you were in a less saturated niche like where I am, then you have a chance of promoting your item based on the utility of the search. Anyways, so a lot of her videos over here, I like these very much, okay? Which is, how I grew my small business, how we prep our orders so that you could see what business is like from a established traditional seller as opposed to what a reseller business is. now you have a good idea of a role model to help you pivot from one business model to another business model. Okay. So essentially, she started at a 400 square foot apartment and she just borrowed her mom's sewing machine. And the sewing machine was basically like any kind that you could find at Target or Hobby Lobby. It wasn't anything super professional. And she just made the scrunchies herself. The first scrunchie that she ever made was made out of an old t-shirt that she borrowed from her mom, and it was just supposed to be a gift for her cousin. She was never trying to start a business from the beginning, and what ended up happening is that her family convinced her to turn it into a business. Now, what's even more interesting about this is that when she was on the episode of Dragon's Den, she specifically told the dragons that when she got into this, she has no business background whatsoever, and she just, figured things out as she went along. The whole point of this episode is to say, look, you have to look into stuff. And only when you start looking into stuff, you learn by doing. The same way you got into reselling is the same way that you could also get into private labeling as well. And private labeling, again, all it really is you, instead of selling other people's stuff, selling stuff that you created yourself. So my stuff is created also by myself originally, and then I outsourced it to factories. So she definitely started off doing her own products as well. And then she outsourced it to factories later on. So whatever you see in all of her videos over here, from her inventory, her warehouse space, I'm going to show a little bit of my warehouse space later on in this video as well. But you can see exactly how our businesses start up. It's not done by, anybody particularly special. And in her particular case, she didn't even have a proper training business background or anything like that. I at least started because my father was also an importer and product developer. So at least I had that. So there's this comment that was left on one of our recent videos that I found extremely alarming, because the way that he is explaining stuff is kind of like my, oh shoot, is this how people are feeling kind of moment. Luckily, I know that most people aren't thinking like this, but there's still a decent size of people who do believe this. So he says, I noticed that all of your videos seem to be trying to tell people how to run a business with replenishable inventory. Yes, absolutely, because without replenishable inventory, there's no way that you can leverage automation within the system of selling things online. Because if you don't have repeatable sales, there's no way of you turning your business into passive income so that you're not working as hard, but you're still making sales in your sleep, basically. So you seem to be trying to market your videos to eBay sellers though. Absolutely, because only eBay sellers in the beginning area, they don't have these kinds of things. Because if you have replenishable listings, if you have repeatable sales, most likely you're not just in the eBay reseller space. You are a multi-platform seller because you can be. So if you are stuck as just an eBay reseller, listen to what he says over here. eBay sellers want to know how to find stuff that will sell at yard sales, thrift stores, flea markets, and such, and how to sell those items on eBay. I disagree with this. The issue is that when you are a reseller in the beginning, because you don't know business and you don't have the sources, you don't have the contacts, you don't have a choice other than to source things through thrift shops, garage sales, yard sales, flea markets, and stuff like that. Everybody clearly knows that it is far better to have a replenishable, repeatable sale type of listing than to do stuff one-off items with one-off listings, because the amount of sales that I'm able to do is just based on how much inventory that I could purchase. But the amount of sales that you can do as a reseller is based off of how many you can buy plus how many that you're able to list. So there is double the restriction here because it is tied to how much elbow grease that you're able to put into your business. So as we move along over here, he says that you say you are trying to help them, but you come off as just attacking them a lot of times and trying to tell them that they should be doing what you're doing. Not exactly. Of course, there are people who do this on the side and they think that this is fun. Those are the hobbyist people. That's not for them. For those people who are trying to take this to another level, I'm absolutely not attacking those people. The people who need to be exposed are the ones who are trying to romanticize and sensationalize, glamorize what reselling actually is. And I'll show you why in a bit. He goes on to say, it's like you're going online and trying to tell football players that they are playing basketball wrong. Football players aren't interested in how to play basketball, though. They want to know how to play football better, right? So this kind of thinking is what is very dangerous. Now, I've said this before in the past. The problem is that the reseller gurus, the educators, the creators, a lot of them overly romanticize what reselling is, and you are at the shallow end of the pool. And they kept telling you, don't look up, don't look out, don't look over there. Reselling is fine. Stay a reseller, stay where you are, stay in your lane. When the truth is, reselling is overly simplistic and therefore very limiting in all of the options that you can actually have when running a business. And the more options that you have, the more freedom that you have to do stuff. So when you're talking something like this, right, this kind of ideology of comparing football and basketball, clearly his indoctrination has led him to believe that the idea of reselling versus all of the other levels of e-commerce are of equal playing field. This is professional NBA versus professional NFL. That is not nearly the case at all. I would argue that what you're doing in reselling is barely even pee-wee football versus actual football. So when I talk about, the whole e-commerce space, I personally like to use the analogy of the pool, because you're in the shallow end of the pool. And at the shallow end of the pool, you can't dive, you can't backstroke, you can't even dog paddle here. Once you go into the deeper levels, now all your freestyling abilities start to unlock. So when you think about what Tina is doing, before, if you are just reselling other people's products, you don't really have a reason to advertise. You don't have a reason to go over to social media and then start to create a buzz and eventually have a chance at going viral. But Tina does, because that's her own item, her own brand, XXL Scrunchie. Hi guys, I made this scrunchie. What do you guys think? And then it turns out that way more people resonated that than she thought they did. Immediately they saw her nice scrunchies, the different kinds of materials that she was using, her designs and stuff, and said, please take my money. And that is the best possible feeling ever. So I want to show you guys more about the world of what private labeling is. So I recorded myself in my own warehouse, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how else that I'm able to leverage automation and leverage factories. All right, guys, so everybody's gone and I'm in the warehouse. It's going to be a little weird because I'm doing this with my camera and it's tilted sideways. So the camera's here, but the screen is here. So I'm kind of, you know what I mean? Anyways, so I kind of wanted to give you guys a little inside look of how the operation runs, okay, as a private labeler versus what you guys are doing in reselling. So many of you guys who have wrote to me in email have told me specifically that you're actually a very private person. Well, clearly so am I. So I'm not very big on showing, the back end of my numbers as well as my company and then like all the other stuff, right? So I will do my best to try to give you guys a glimpse of much as possible, okay? And what is it specifically that I do? So as we get over here, this is one of my staple items, okay? I probably have been selling this item since around 2008, okay? So 17 years now, I guess. And this is something that I developed when I was a kid, and this is like my final iteration of it, right? So I've been selling this for a very, very long time. And for those of you guys who follow the channel, you guys already know that I'm an eBay Motors guy, and I do a lot of car accessories. So this is a car accessory item. I'm not gonna show you exactly what the item is, but the point is that it has my number SKU as well as the color on it. Okay. Now, when we ship stuff, I use ShipStation personally. And the reason why I use ShipStation is because I'm not just an eBay seller, I'm a multi-platform seller. So I wanted a place where I could download all the shipping labels into one place, organize it, and then ship it, print out batches so that everything is nice and neat in order, right? Okay, so because we are very careful with what we're doing, so this thing, even though it's already sealed in a poly bag, and I make it very explicit to the factories that I want everything in a ready to ship condition when I buy stuff from the factory, because that way I'm not doing any of the packing. Well, the guys are not doing any of the packing whatsoever. But the point is that I just wanted a little tape in the back, because that way they could easily check if the color is correct every single time, and then go ahead and then peel this off and then seal it permanently. So I don't want it to be sealed permanently in the beginning. So what I'm trying to say is that as a entrepreneurial thinking, you're always thinking 10 steps ahead of stuff, right? And practice makes perfect. So as you're doing the business, of course, I didn't always have my stuff polybagged. I didn't always tell them to do this. It was already and then there will be like certain issues. So the thing is that when you are ordering a large order of something, okay, you can see that over here. I don't know if you can see it. This is upside down right now, but basically it says 15 out of 96 made in China, right? And that means that this is 96 cases, and there's about 25 units inside of all these. So this is a 2,400 piece order that is sitting behind me right here. Now, the thing is that, you know, you're not going to check all 2,400 pieces order, right? You're just going to randomly check, like you're the TSA or something, 5 or 6 boxes, and you want to be able to do something like this so that, okay, once I got 5 or 6 boxes, okay, it's pretty much accurate, then we could just go ahead and start stacking them up. Now, you can also see that my warehouse is different than a lot of the resellers' warehouses, right? I don't have a bunch of U-line boxes with all of these things sticking out of it, and then, you know, SKU labels from like 0 all the way to 20,000. Of course, you know, in my business, I am limited how much I could sell based on how many I can buy. But in your business as a reseller, you are limited to how many you can sell by how many you can list. So if you got like 10,000 units behind you and you have 100 units of everything, then I only need 100 listings in order to put everything out on the shelf and get it offered into the internet. While for you, if you have 10,000 items behind you because you bought it from pallets or wherever you sourced it from, if you don't have 10,000 listings to match those 10,000 units, then, you know, you're limiting yourself even more. And that's why I don't have death piles. And in your business model, you have death piles. So I know that's a little bit like, you know, duh and obvious, but I think it really needs to be said. Another thing that I like to point out is that, you know, a lot of people buy the U-line boxes, and sometimes they have to go through a couple of boxes as they get old and beat up, and then you have to use the boxes. But I don't do that because my stuff already comes in master cartons, right? So I just use whatever the master carton is. So depending on the height of the box, okay, if it's already at you know, knee level height, then we'll just open the box from the top. Sometimes we'll just open it from the side and then dump it over here. But many times we try to make pull boxes when they are something at like, you know, arm or eye level, right? So how you make a pull box is you cut a V like this and then a line here, and then you punch it through. So this is a pull box that I picked up over there, and this is a red one. So you can see that somebody wrote red like this, and then they cut this out as a pull box, and then they punched it in, right? So now, you know, whatever units are still in here, you could just easily go ahead and grab one. So my whole inventory and organization is completely different than what a normal reseller is. Another example that I want to give you guys is my headrest example, right? So this is something that comes in a smaller poly bag like this, and I already have it taken out because this is a refurbished one that a customer returned. This item's return rate, I would say, is about 0.3. So it's very, very small. It's like 0.3%, right? So very rarely do I have anybody returning this stuff. And it's because we think very, very far ahead when we create the item. So I'm going to show you the back of this item because I don't want to show you the actual item. So this is the headrest, okay? And you can see the headrest here, there's a zipper, and then you open up the zipper. So with these headrests, they come with these poly fillers, okay? This is just like nylon, you know, cushion filler, whatever. And this is vacuum sealed. So now it's super small, right? So when this thing is put together, it's super small, super compact. And what I love about this is that we give more poly filler than the headrest pillow can handle. That way, the customer doesn't feel as if we cheaped out on them or anything, because polyfiller is incredibly cheap. So just give them a little bit more, so there's no complaints whatsoever. But because they get to fill as much or as little as they want, they get to adjust the firmness and the softness of the item. So these are all like innovations and thinking when it comes to creating a product. But more than just that, I make sure that this personal item, this specific item, we put the leather casings in between the the poly fillers, right? Because that way, when it's in the poly bag and they crack it open like with, you know, a scissor or a box cutter or something, and many times they might cut the actual product. So when they cut the product, is it my fault? Is it your fault? It doesn't matter. It's coming back to you. And when you're selling on eBay or Amazon and you have to guarantee stuff, it's really hard to dispute stuff like that. So what happens? It's like, well, it's your fault because you cut it, but no, it's my fault because I packed it that way so that when people open it, there's a chance of things getting cut. So therefore, it's still my fault. It's so irritating, right? So you have to think very, very far ahead when you develop your products to reduce all of those headaches. So now it's not possible to make that happen unless you're slicing it this way. Why would you slice it that way, right? So when they pack it like this and then put it in the bag, basically this thing has a return rate now reduced down to 0.3, you know? So very, very good, no headache item. The margins on this one is very good, but I'm not gonna go into that detail. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of my warehouse. And a little shipping tip, right? For those of you who do a lot higher quantities every day, has your USPS guy ever said to you that you do have USPS pickup, offered you like the bags and stuff? This was his idea, actually, right? He was like, hey, you guys want bags because you ship so much? And I'm like, well, what do you mean our bags, right? So he shows up with like 50, 60 bags every single time, and they're bags stuffed within bags. So I just wanted to show you like an example of the bag. I think it's funny how they have DHL labels on it, but yeah, this is absolutely an official USPS bag. So this bag, if you are used to, you know, shipping out a lot of poly mailer stuff, you could pretty much dump like 30 bags in here very neatly so that it comes out like a really big square pillow. So when we're loading it to the van every single day, you just, you know, give them like, you know, 2 or 3 bags and you're done, right? As opposed to trying to shovel stuff onto the truck all the time. And many times that truck, it doesn't have any kind of dividers or proper boxes or whatever to really, if you have a lot of small stuff to give the mailman. So asking them for bags has been a real game changer for us, especially if it also includes the shipping manifest inside so that he could scan that and we could leave it in the bag so that he could find that later on. And a lot of our stuff don't easily go missing anymore, okay? Yeah, but other than that, I just want to show you guys that like my operation is really not that different from your operation. I still have, you know, tape guns as well. This one I like very much because this is a 3M one, and this is the deluxe one, so that when this gets pushed, the teeth pop out more, so that it chops itself off a little bit better. You know, I use digital scales. I gotta put it back, but I use digital scales as well. So yeah, the biggest difference between my operation and your operation is that I leverage all sorts of automation. I outsource as much as possible so that I could step back from the business as much as possible so that I could spend way more time thinking about the business entrepreneurially. Because in the long run, you want to inject as much business wisdom as you can into your business instead of just more and more technician role, right? The technician role, eventually you want to outsource it to other things. You want to automate it in some way. You want to hire somebody else in order to do that stuff because you have much more important things to do. You have to offer the insight and the vision into your business. So, you know, essentially what I do and what you do, the biggest difference is that I do a lot less repetitive work than what most resellers do. And that is the gist of it. All right, guys, so if you stuck it out for this long into the video, thank you very much. You have the patience of the saint. I was speaking a little bit fast before because I really just wanted to lock up and get home. So I'm going to show you a little bit more of the operation and what it pretty much looks like. So I'm going to throw up a short video over here and you guys get to kind of sort of see what the warehouse looks like. I'm going to blur it out a little bit because I don't want to give away the brand names and stuff like that. But essentially, rather than to whip out the digital whiteboard normally and then show you a whole bunch of infographics and technical information about how to become a private labeler, I figure in this particular video, we'll just discuss a little bit more about how the business works and what the overall strategy is, you know? So basically, when you think about it, what I do is the reverse of what reselling is. I don't just jump into sourcing stuff and selling stuff. I spend a lot of time into researching items and developing the item first. So all of the hard work is front loaded into the business first. So if I had a day job, I would just be working the day job while studying and research and developing my item and getting into context. So every single day, my efforts start to compound. I learned a little bit more about stuff. I research a little bit more into the niche, to the item that I'm trying to do. I look more into all of my future competitors, what their pain points are of their customer reviews, as well as what the top reviewers are talking about as far as items in this niche area, so that I start to figure out exactly who the shills are versus who the real reviewers are, right? So every single day, I'm doing more and more research that compounds over time until I'm finally ready to develop my product, from prototyping all the way to finding a factory partner to develop my item should I want to outsource it. And then once I have that minimum order quantity, we're going to go ahead and test it on places such as eBay. The whole point of this is to develop that pipeline so that eventually you have a successful item. But what I want you to do is think of it more like this way. When you are doing reselling, your account, your store, how much you move out of your whole store, how many listings that you're doing, that was one way to look at business. But the way I look at business is that for every single item that I develop, it's basically another store within a store. What do I mean by this? Well, for me, my account, my store is just a vessel to house every single successful product that I have developed over time. But every product that I developed, it's the listing itself where it becomes higher ranking as it starts to convert more and more. To me, it's kind of like an individual funnel. It's kind of like an individual website. So it's my account, my store, and every single item that I produce is an individual website. Does that make sense? So when I promote a listing, it's not so much that like I'm just trying to get some visibility into the listing. No, I'm trying to nurture the listing so that it goes from zero visibility to high visibility. And then once I have that, I could back off that promoted ad so I could get my margins back and really start to make money while the item starts to get more and more traction. So the way like we look at business, even though we're in the same space of doing e-commerce, is totally different now because I front load all of the efforts in the beginning. The interesting part about this is that as you are developing product after product after product, the success retention is always going to be there. So like I showed you before, I have items that I have sold for over 17 years. So once I've developed this item and I leave it on autopilot, it just keeps on going off on its own. Now, the reason why I don't like to show the back end numbers of my eBay store is because that depends on how many items that I have in rotation between items that I'm trying to develop and items that I'm trying to exit. For me, when you look at the numbers, it has nothing to do with whether the business is doing good or doing poorly. It has to do with how many items that I have in rotation is what truly affects my numbers. My real numbers comes from doing things like Amazon FBA. Now, why FBA? Because FBA handles everything for you. They store your items for you. They ship their items for you. They handle the customer service for you. So now I don't pack my stuff. I leverage factories in China to make stuff for me and then package it for me in ready to ship condition. It gets shipped directly to Amazon warehouses. I don't do any of the customer service. I don't do any of the shipping myself. So what do I do every single day? I pretty much manage a dashboard. I manipulate a dashboard every day. I monitor like the PPC campaign. I monitor what the sales look like. And then I have meetings and chats with my VAs periodically. That's mostly what I do over here. For the stuff that we pack and launch and ship domestically from the smaller warehouse, then basically, you know, I just have a couple employees that I have to deal with. Now, basically what I do over here in this warehouse is that the items that come in for eBay, for me, that is the stomping ground, right? That's where we test stuff. That's where we start to sell things and try to develop proof of demand first. And then once we have that, we try to transition it over to FBA. So a lot of the pallets and the wrapped up stuff that you see is stuff that is like, okay, we've proven that this item is doing very well. We're going to move it over to FBA now. So as we transition it out of the smaller warehouse, that is what we have left over. And then from now on, when we reorder again and the item is moving over from Amazon, then those things just get ordered directly from the China factories straight to the Amazon warehouses. So there you go, full automation, right? The more I could remove myself from the business, then the more business I'm able to do. And that is the whole gist of the whole business. I hope that explains a lot more of exactly what private labeling is. And generally, the idea is that I don't want people to think that it's too hard. The whole point is that you have to look into it first. A lot of people are going to see this type of operation as if like it's some kind of grandiose thing. But here's the issue, right? The you today, of course, could not take on and handle this much responsibility. But once you start looking into it, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, that person, that version of you could absolutely do something like this. And just like Tina Nguyen, where, she just started off, doing a gift for a cousin and it turned into a multi-million-dollar business, you could see that everybody actually comes from very humble beginnings and everybody is just a normal person just like you. So when they say things to you like, well, this business isn't for everybody, I disagree. The business is for everybody because anybody can do it. Our worldview dictates our actions. So therefore, if you see yourself like, I don't think I can handle something like that, then you're right. You can't handle something like that. But if you say things like, I could do that, then you will do that. And that is the angle. Anyways, guys, that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did learn something, please consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you guys in the next. Take care.